Keep Nintendo weird, my friends. Your boy Seth here, bringing you another episode of the Weird Nintendo podcast about loving weird Nintendo games. I feel like I'm having to be a little bit more subdued. It's an early morning right now. My wife is asleep in the other room, and I feel like I have to be a little Keep Nintendo weird ASMR, perhaps. That'd be so funny. There's like ASMR for everything. There must be some sort of weird Nintendo ASMR channel out there. They gotta be out there someplace, no? On the YouTube? Anyway, hi, if you're watching this on youtube.com/allinpodcast, if you're listening to this on your podcast feed, sporadically, occasionally, I produce an episode of this show where a guest and I sit down and talk about a weird Nintendo game, just sharing the love and passion for an underrepresented or undersung Nintendo game. As you guys might know if you've been following the show for a little while, I have had a focus here lately on 3DS and Wii U games, digital games, because those eShops are closing at the end of March, and so I'm trying to spotlight as many of those games as possible, have as many conversations about those games as possible, while you can still go and easily and legally acquire them. And today's game is no different. But before we get into that, we have to thank the people who make it all happen. We have to thank our patrons at patreon.com/allnpodcast, where our Golden Banana and Triforce tier patrons get shoutouts at the beginning of our podcast. So let's do that right now. I want to thank, again, starting with our Golden Banana bunch, I want to thank Dan Caparello of the Retro Logic Podcast, Rob Yapel, Third Strongest Mole, also of the Retro Logic Podcast, Sean O'Baggins Ashton, Tim A, aka NeoPrime33, aka Nintendo Dad number 4, Matt, Shy Guy City Murray, Shy Guy, the two fearless members of the Shy Guy Mod Squad. We have got Drew Agnew, the handsome host of the House of Mario podcast, Phelan Ward, the host of the Damage Counter Pokemon Trading Card Game podcast, Bill Tucker, the host of A Gamer Looks at 40, and then Marcus O'Neill, a good personal friend of mine from the Carpool Gaming community. Love you, Marcus. And then moving into the Triforce tier, our ultimate Triforce tier supporters, longtime friend and supporter Josh Vaughn, John Cummins, the third and final member of the Retro Logic Podcast Infinity Gauntlet and host, as always, of On Topic Retro. The Globetrotting, Jet-Setting, Nintendo Hubbin' Sparky, the person behind the Nintendo Hub on YouTube. Definitely check out the Nintendo Hub. Adam Caparello, Octorock 1982 himself, one of the hosts of the excellent Retro Groove podcast, as well as the up-and-coming YouTube channel called Octorock 1982. Definitely show Adam your love and support. And the legend himself, who might not make any content on the internet, but provides a lot of content in our hearts. The one, the only, the legend, Uncle Randy. Thank you very much, Uncle Randy. We love you, and thank you for your support. Yeah, guys, we, the people on Patreon make this all happen. The people on Patreon, and I'm not just saying that. We show our support as much as we can in any small way that we can, because you guys really do make the dreams come true. And patrons do get early access to this show. If you're a Patreon member, you are getting early access to this right now before the rest of the world sees it. And if that sounds good to you, head on over there to patreon.com/allinpodcast. Got 3 tiers. See what works for you. You get the show early, even if it's just for $1. Even just at the $1 tier, $1 a month gets you early access to this show. And our Golden Banana tier and Triforce tier patrons are also getting to vote on the next episode of Keep Nintendo Weird. I think I got one more in me for 2022. And I have voting going on right now, even as we speak, for the next episode of Keep Nintendo Weird. There's like 6 options that people are able to vote for. So if you want to influence what the next episode of K&W is going to be, you can become a Golden Banana or Triforce tier patron and make your voice heard in the vote. Voting is going on through until December 16th. And after that point, the die will be cast and the episode will be decided. And we're going to get one more done before the end of the year, and then we'll be heading into the new year. So again, thank you all so much for sticking with me on this journey. I've also got a new 5-star review to shout out on Apple Podcasts from Ace. I guess this is Ace Element or AC Element, maybe, who leaves a review that just says, "Top-notch Nintendo talk. 5 stars. Seth and his guests go into incredible detail about these forgotten video game gems while also keeping the discussion interesting and engaging the entire time. Highly recommended listening for any Nintendo fan or game historian. So thank you very much for that 5-star review. Very much appreciated. You can leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Audible, and on Spotify you can leave a 5-star rating. Those are super, super appreciated. Helps get this weird niche little show in front of the people who would appreciate it. Man, I'm trying to think of anything else. We just announced to our patrons, we've got the Golden Aces for All In, a Nintendo podcast, the main show. The Golden Aces are happening live here on YouTube. If you're watching the video version, we're going to be doing that live on YouTube, I believe on January 4th. So definitely come and hang out for our kind of end of the year awards. Links to all the All In stuff is always in the video description or in the episode description. So, definitely hang out for that. And speaking of All In, my special guest today is my co-host on All In, the one and only Eric Provost, who, it's funny because we sort of resisted for a while having Eric on Keep Nintendo Weird, because again, like we have Eric on All In every week. You guys get to hear him over there. So it's like, if I have him on KNW, is it just like All In with extra steps, basically? But what's nice is it really did it just made the most sense to have him on this episode. This episode about Pushmo. The Pushmo series is Eric's favorite puzzle game franchise. I'm going to let him describe it. I'm not going to cannibalize the conversation too much, but this show is all about the passion. It's all about talking to the person who is the most passionate about the game in question. And I've never met anybody more passionate about the Pushmo franchise than Eric, my good friend, my brother in All In. And it was a total treat to talk to him. We get into kind of like what Pushmo meant to him during his employment, employment, but also deployment is what I meant to say, in Afghanistan, working as a soldier for the U.S. military, for the U.S. Army, for many years, which is how we met. When I met Eric, he was a soldier. I don't know how many people know that. There's just something really fascinating to me about what video games can mean to people in a particular time in their life, and that's something we're going to get into, as well as just discussing the series in general. So I'm not going to delay that any further. I'm going to roll out the red carpet, and I'm going to let you guys kind of get to hear some more about Pushmo from Eric. We're going to hang out, we're going to celebrate this little series, and as always, we're going to keep Nintendo weird. So, hey, have we met before?
Sir, I'm going to need you to bring down your tone just a little bit. Yes, do not adjust your set, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, the illustrious All In Eric, despite the fact that Seth and I already spend way too much time together each and every week producing all of your favorite All In content. He couldn't not do this episode without me.
That's fair. Yeah, it was pretty much required that I have you on for this auspicious occasion. Mm-hmm. As you guys know, if you've been listening to the show for a little while, I've been trying to cover a lot of like 3DS and Wii U games, and this one that we're going to be talking about tonight, Pushmo, the Pushmo series, is probably like one of, if not the ultimate examples of like what we're talking about, like why we need these kind of like weird, underrated, underrepresented games to be preserved, to be maintained, and you need to go and pick them up while you still have a chance. So we're going to talk about Pushmo and like what makes it special. This, for those who have never heard Eric talk about Pushmo on the main show, on All In Nintendo podcast, is Eric's favorite puzzle series of all time. Eric says Tetris, it's cool. They're like Tetris, cool, fine, that's all right. I like it. It's great. Don't get me wrong, but Pushmo is where it's at.
But does it have Malo, Seth?
Right, but does it have Malo is the question that we hold this metric to. So before we get into it, though, I'm going to do something weird because, Eric, where might people know you from?
Well, Seth, fans of yours might know me from your show.
Yeah. You're a guest on my show every now and then.
Exactly, yeah. No, I mean, of course, if you have any inkling of who Seth is whatsoever, and you don't know who I am, what are you even doing with
Yeah.
your life at this point? Of course, I am the co-host of the amazing All In, a Nintendo podcast, your weekly Nintendo variety show where each and every Saturday, no shell is left unturned and no point is left unearned. I've always wanted to say that.
It is usually me that gets to say that. That's
it
right.
is usually you that says that. But you can find me on Twitter at allin_Eric, at ALLN_ERIC. And then, basically just follow All In. I'm actually the one that handles most of the social media and most of our community outreach when it comes to our social media. So yeah, just follow us there if you want to talk to either myself or Seth.
Yeah. It is a little bit weird to like self promote, but you are my guest after all. You get to promote your stuff. It just so happens that your stuff also has me involved with it. So maybe a little bit of nepotism, but that's okay. We're okay with that. We're okay with that here. So Eric is indeed my co-host on All In. We met many moons ago when I worked at GameStop, and in 2020, we decided to start this little thing, this little independent Nintendo podcast together, and it has been an interesting ride. We've done a lot of stuff together. We have done we're in the 99th percentile of podcasts in terms of minutes of podcast produced, according to Spotify Wrapped.
And that's just the main show.
We also do Patreon exclusive content together. We talk every single day. We're partners, and we hang out a lot, and we make a lot of stuff together. In terms of like the people that I have made stuff with over the years, I've never made more stuff with anybody than Eric. So just.
That's a thing. It's true, I guess.
It's just true. It's funny because I did this podcast with my cousin for like 3 years. In terms of like minutes recorded and episodes and stuff, like it doesn't even touch All In. Because, All In, it's a long show. Like you said, it's a variety show. If you are this show's kind of hyper focused on like weird Nintendo, but All In is for like the hardcore Nintendo fan. Yeah, it's everything.
All Nintendo.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if it falls under the Big N's umbrella, you'll probably find it somewhere, somehow, somewhen on All In a Nintendo podcast. And if you haven't checked out that show yet, if you are a fan of keeping Nintendo weird, I mean, check out All In. It's a quality show. I can vouch because I help make most.
Because you're there. Because you're a part of it. Yeah, and we it's great. We get to do that every single week, and there's a lot of work that goes into it. And if you want to hear more stuff like this, we try to cover various kind of aspects of being a Nintendo fan, and links to that are always in the descriptions. You can always check out All In, but especially this time, we have Eric here. Like he's our guest, so definitely check it All In now.
Just post the links a second time. You'll be fine.
Yeah, just put it. Just the whole episode description is just All In links.
Yeah. But Seth. I want to talk about Pushmo.
Okay, where I normally start with these is I normally ask how you were first introduced to Pushmo. So where did you meet?
Where did we meet? Ironically enough, in Afghanistan.
Oh, interesting.
Pushmo was released in 2011. Mm-hmm. It was released about a month before I got back from my first deployment. And I didn't have a lot. I had my PlayStation 3 that I took with me on deployment that I got to play quite a bit. But because of my job, because of what I did in the military, I was constantly traveling from base to base to base to base to base. And my 3DS was a godsend for me on my first tour. Well, on both of my tours.
Mm-hmm.
But it released, I believe, October October, I believe, 2011. And I remember just, trying to keep up with what was going on. The 3DS, that was the first year of the 3DS.
Right.
So it was all new and sexy and everything. And, uh, just having this handheld, it still kind of blows my mind to this day. The fact that we could have a handheld and have glasses free 3D.
It's
How
still
cool
cool.
was that?
Still
How
cool.
cool is that? How were they possibly going to use this new visual effect, this new visual gimmick? Well, it turns out Nintendo didn't really waste any time in that regard. Nintendo, helped put out this wonderful little interesting little puzzle game that took full use of the Nintendo 3DS's 3D effect, and that was Intelligent Systems Pushmo.
Yeah.
And for those who have never played it, for those who have never played Pushmo, you play as this adorable little sumo. What is it called? Like a sumo diaper or sumo?
Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but he's like a little squishy sumo guy.
Yeah. Yeah, if you made a cookie out of a sumo wrestler, basically.
That's a really good. That's actually an excellent way to describe him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you have this little character named Malo and Papa Blocks, or Papa Push, or what Papa Blocks,
whatever he is. Yeah, I think it's Blocks. Yeah.
But you have these characters within this park, and within this park are a bunch of puzzles, a bunch of little stands called Pushmos that Papa Blocks puts together. And what they are, they're essentially pixel art. The thing is, you can go up and grab individual elements of these murals. Effectively, they appear as murals within the course of the game, but you can go up and grab the individual pieces of them and pull them out up to 3 layers, and then you can jump on top of those layers that you've pulled out if you have enough space to do that. And your entire goal with the Pushmos is to navigate your way to the top. In the first game, you have all these young kids who wind up getting stuck in the Pushmo puzzles themselves, and it's Malo's job, it's his mission, it's his call to action to solve all the different Pushmos and save the kids. And that's how he does it, is he goes through these Pushmo puzzles, but just the gameplay of it was so incredibly novel, helped a ton by how great it looked because of the 3D effect, actually pushing stuff in to the or into the background, pulling it in to the foreground, looked so cool, and honestly enhanced the gameplay. It was a little bit harder to tell what you were doing if you didn't have the 3D effect on. Thankfully, it wasn't that hard to tell, because there were a lot of people, even to this day, that the 3D effect on the 3DS didn't really resonate with them that well, unfortunately. So it certainly wasn't a game breaker, but I had no problem with the 3D effect, and it looked absolutely fantastic. And just the concept of it, there are a few games in history that just have a simple concept and nail it.
Yeah.
Coming out the gate. Absolutely nail the concept coming out the gate. You could argue that another puzzle all-time great that we previously mentioned a few minutes ago, you could argue that Tetris was another one of those. It just takes a simple concept and just nailed it. Coming out the gate, knew exactly what it was, knew exactly how to implement it. And that's when it comes. I think the best puzzle games are relatively simple concepts. I think the best puzzle games, stuff like Tetris, stuff like Panel de Pon, stuff like Pushmo, because we've got a couple sequels to Pushmo that tried to do some interesting different things, but for my money, Pushmo, the original, is still far and away the best of the series. It was just a simple concept done perfectly, because in addition to just the standard, taking the different elements of the mural, taking the different elements of the pixel art and pulling them out, and you could even pull them from the side, which added even more strategy to it. In addition to just being able to do that on the base level, they added in a couple really cool quirks to it. They added in a couple devices. They added in a couple extra little mechanics that really opened up what was possible with these Pushmo puzzles. They added little teleport ladders that would immediately take you from one part of the puzzle to another. They added these little arrows in that if you jumped on it, it would immediately jut that piece of the puzzle out all three spaces. They added a couple that just blew open the possibility of what you could do with Pushmos in the game, and every single one of them was just so incredibly interesting. There were a lot of super rudimentary ones that would probably only take you a few moments to solve, but by the time you got deep into the game and you were dealing with like the 4 or 5 star level puzzles, they weren't just like, it wasn't just like a puzzle. It was like a puzzle world. It wasn't just one solution. You had to find like 15 different solutions. And it was great because you would get to a point. It was almost like checkpointing. You would figure out how to get to the next point up. Like, it was so incredibly well designed because it wasn't just trying to get to the top. There were so many little, like, you had to get from one point to the next point to the next point to the next
like
point.
Mini puzzles to solve the grander puzzle. Yeah.
You had to find like 7 separate solutions to get to the one grand solution. And I love that so much because it wasn't just finding the solution. You were working your way naturally, organically. You were working your way through the solution, one little thing at a time, and just pushing stuff in and pulling stuff out and waiting for something to click. And it was so incredibly satisfying when all of a sudden you were just messing with stuff and then you see it. And then your Pushmo vision kicks in, and all of a sudden you see it, and then you start moving stuff around like it's this massive city-sized Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
And you just start moving stuff around.
It does feel like that.
Once you see, oh my God, there are no more satisfying feeling in a puzzle game for me than seeing the Pushmo. And it was so great because once you played enough, like, you just had that, like, almost like quarterback vision. You just had that Pushmo vision.
You see the matrix.
You could just, you could see how everything worked. You could see how the different pieces and where you could stand to pull out different pieces from the side or what to, you could just see everything. And it was like Zach Galifianakis in The Hangover.
The numbers all over the screen.
Numbers, like the geometry and everything surrounding your head. Oh my God, it was just so, like, satisfying is the word that I keep using, and I'm probably going to use it a few more times, but that's just what it was. It was so satisfying and so fun and so polished and well implemented. Again, a simple concept done perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is done perfectly, and they got it in one. And I really like the follow-ups to it, but the simplicity of that first one really is attractive to me. And they also there's a lot of puzzles in that game for what was, I think it was like $7.99 when it came out or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't a retail release. It was a 3DSware game. This was a Nintendo published title that was not, like, you couldn't find it on store shelves.
Right.
It was a 3DSware game. And there were a lot of 3DSware games you guys should definitely check out, definitely look up before the eShops close. But if you are even remotely interested in puzzle games and you don't have Pushmo on your 3DS or Pushmo World on your Wii U, I don't know if we can be friends.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot of good ones, but Pushmo really does stand up as, like, it's pretty timeless. Because it is simple. Because ultimately, all Mallow can really do is, like, push and pull and jump. Really, like the core moveset of Pushmo is incredibly simple, but it feels really good. It's satisfying. It's well designed. One of my favorite things, like you talk about, like the sort of like seeing the Matrix, like, puzzle game vision where everything just sort of clicks into place. because like you said, this is pixel art. These stages are made of pixel art. So to see the finished product, like, not only is it satisfying to rescue the kid at the top of the Pushmo, but when it all clicks and it gets to pan out and you see what it is you're making, sometimes even like NES sprites, that's just so cool.
See, that's the thing, is not only is it a simple concept done perfectly, but because of the nature of what the puzzles are, because it's these pixel art style murals, yeah, you can do whatever you want with them. And they often did. If you wanted to make like a banana or a strawberry, you could make almost literally anything you could think of into a pixel art Pushmo. And of course, because it's pixel art and because it's Nintendo, there were a ton of references thrown in, and those were some of the hardest and best puzzles in the series. When you got to climb up this pixel art mural of Mega Man or Link or Princess Peach from SMB2, like, those were my favorite. Those were far and away my favorite. But yeah, they had a bunch that were just kind of geometric shapes that were designed just to be puzzles. They had a bunch of, like I said, just murals like elephants and school desks and just, again, anything that you could think of. It was almost like Picross
Right.
solves come to life.
Big time. Yeah, that is how it feels. There's just all these little things that just like feed into like the dopamine, like all of the stuff that you look for in like a good puzzle game, the satisfying solves, the design of it, the completion, seeing the final like mural or whatever put together is just so well done. And to your point, like you were saying, you can make them. Like they had like user generated content. And when it came to something like you mentioned Pushmo World on the Wii U, it was essentially just a hub for UGC, for user generated content. And that's like, to me, that's what takes it to the next level. Like, the game's already great, but when you factor in the fact that like people can make their own stages and challenge people, like I played a few of your levels that you made and stuff, and
yeah,
like, that's just great, man. I love that you can do that.
The fact that is not on the Nintendo Switch right now, if I had the number to Kyoto's police department, Nintendo,
you'd all be arrested for not putting.
All be arrested. But yeah, I mean, you could. Pushmo World, because it's on the Wii U, of course, it had that online hub, which of course is one of the things that's going away. But even the original Pushmo had those user created levels that you could create. Once you got far enough into the game, you could have access to this massive canvas. You could make some really intricate levels. They gave you access to all the different devices and mechanics and everything. They gave you access to all the different colors, so you could really make these pixel art. You could really do a lot of stuff with these things. And the way they did it with the original was kind of clever, because you would create one in the original Pushmo and it would generate an AR code on the screen.
Yes.
And then somebody else could bring up their 3DS, and then using the 3DS camera, they could scan the AR code on your copy of Pushmo and download your Pushmo into their copy of the game.
Yeah. Oh man, those were the days, dude. Like, the 3DS was such a like communal system. Like, it was so like you and I developed this rapport where we would go out together, have the day out or whatever, and like we knew we were bringing our 3DS, we knew we were getting those Street Pass tags, and like, yeah, it's stuff like that. It's pulling the 3DS out, scan the AR code, play your Pushmo level. It was just all there in this little 3DS, and like, I really do miss that. We don't have that in the modern age. We don't have that with Switch. No, we have outside things, but
yeah, every aspect of Pushmo was really developed for the ground up, or from the ground up, rather, for the 3DS. Not only did the 3D effect really enhance solving the puzzles, but just even creating the Pushmo yourselves, having the stylus and the touch screen made creating the Pushmo yourself such an incredibly intuitive, and I'm going to say it again, even satisfying prospect. Their user-created content in so many different games was always so daunting to me, because the games would very often give you a ton of toys to play with and a ton of tools in your toolbox. So much so that like the possibility and what you could do was kind of overwhelming. But the way it was presented to you in Pushmo, despite again the possibilities really being endless, having a finite canvas, having a few colors you can work with, and just a few devices you could use, despite being able to combine those in literally trillions of different ways, it was just such an incredibly approachable implementation of user-created content that I actually did. I created quite a few Pushmo. I didn't really do that much when it came to Little Big Planet. I've tried to do more stuff in Super Mario Maker, but I actually did a lot. I created a ton of Pushmo puzzles.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I remember, being in GameStop when I was supposed to be working and just pulling out the 3DS and doing some of your Pushmo levels. And yeah, it's cool, man. Like I miss those times. Those were really special times. And Nintendo was very, I feel like, focused on that element when it came to that era. I did want to jump back to, because I actually didn't know that you were sort of first made aware of Pushmo when you were overseas. I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I knew that the 3DS was sort of like I remember you telling me stories about how you would like ring in the new year with like New Leaf and stuff on your 3DS.
I did do that on my second deployment. Yeah, it wasn't out for my first deployment, but I did ring in the new year with New Leaf on my second tour. That was fun.
I remember you telling me that story. And so I'm curious how like, what the experience, like, did you just hear about it through like the internet? Did you just see it on the eShop? Yeah.
Well, being the US military, like we had internet over there. We had a ton of capabilities. Not saying that a lot of the internet we had over there was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely, it would take a day to download like a gig of something on my PS3 if it didn't stall out. There were times my PS3 would be on for weeks at a time.
Oh my gosh.
Just downloading stuff. But, we did have internet. I was able to keep current. I was able to be on social media, which, Facebook and stuff was really becoming big with the masses around 2010, 2011. So, like, I had ways to connect and stay in touch with the rest of the world. And, that was one of the things that kind of kept me going, was being able to stay up on the latest games, and especially because they were downloadable and I didn't have to trying to download a retail version of any game on the 3DS would have been impossible for me.
Right.
But because of Pushmo's size, because of its relative small file size, I was able to get it. I didn't have to coordinate to have a cartridge sent out to me in Afghanistan to play something like Super Mario 3D Land. All I had to do was, keep my fingers crossed for a few hours on my Nintendo 3DS and make sure that the game downloaded okay. So that was another one of the things that made it such an attractive prospect for me, is because it was actually accessible. We had internet over there, but
Yeah, but it has to be this little tiny weird 3DS puzzle game to that you can actually download, because like you said, it's small file size. I find that really interesting, like this idea of like having this kind of, and you've talked to me about this before, it's really important for soldiers when you're overseas to have that sort of tether to the States, like back home, to have that like semblance of normalcy in this kind of like horrible situation that you're in. Not that, you're there doing a job, it's work, and you're in horrible conditions sometimes, doing, crazy stuff on top secret missions and things like that, and you're serving your country, and you have this little weird 3DS game that is just your perfect tether to normalcy. All of a sudden you're kind of back home playing a game like you would in the States. I love that.
I'm not going to get off on a massive tangent here. We're here to talk about Pushmo, but you really did kind of nail it right on the head.
Yeah.
that's one of the big reasons that I carried it with me, is that was kind of my emotional anchor
Right.
to, the stuff that I knew and was familiar with. I would take it out on missions with me, knowing that I wasn't going to be able to play it on those missions, just to have it with me,
Just to feel it in your pocket.
because it made me comfortable to have it with me. And for those who have never seen military standard issue combat uniforms, those pockets were more than big enough to carry a 3DS in without it really becoming an encumbrance.
Got your steps, got your coins.
I did every day. I got my coins. I absolutely got those coins. But you did really kind of hit the nail on the head with that. Is I found plenty of reasons to play it, to kind of wind down with it. But that was another one of the big reasons I had it with me, is just, just my little worry stone, basically.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I love that. I think that's really cool. I always get fascinated by like just the idea of what we just, before we recorded this week's episode of All In Side Quest, which is a Patreon exclusive show that we did. And I talked about my relationship to Mass Effect and kind of like what it meant for me in that time. It's always interesting to me, just like what a game means to you in a time in your life. And so it's cool that the 3DS and Pushmo got to mean that for you when you were deployed. You had mentioned that the first game is by far and away your favorite. Like, what were your sort of thoughts on Stretchmo and Crashmo and stuff?
Well, Crashmo came out a year later, came out in 2012, and it still had a fairly similar puzzle structure, but instead of being able to take elements of the puzzle and pull them out up to 3 layers, each of the elements of the puzzle were instead their own like blocks.
Right.
And you could maneuver them within a 3D space. They weren't affixed to the back wall. You could actually pull them out, and each of the individual elements, like, they weren't attached to each other. You could pull them out from underneath each other.
Right. And they'd fall and
they'd fall and
crash.
And that was crash mode, exactly.
Yeah.
And then stretch mode, they kind of went back to the whole pulling stuff out 3 layers, but they in turn made that 3-dimensional and 360. Instead of just pulling it out from the front 3 layers, you could instead pull each puzzle out 3 layers, front, left, right, and
all
you could
over.
you could even turn the camera around the back. And they're both good games. They're absolutely worth playing. I'm not saying that, effectively Pushmo 2 and 3, Crashmo and Stretchmo are not worth your time. Far from it. But for me, Pushmo is such a perfect distillation of that original idea. Again, just a simple idea implemented perfectly, that the 2 follow-ups, I just couldn't help but be disappointed that they didn't play more like Pushmo. Like I said, if you want to play, absolutely, they are different enough that they are very different experiences, especially Crashmo. It feels like a very different game than Pushmo. And there is a part of me that is glad that they are very different, because they make for very different types of gameplay experiences. My biggest frustration is that we didn't continue to get more Pushmo puzzles. That's what I wanted. I would be more than happy if there was 3 or 4 Pushmo games, a couple extra Crashmo games, a couple extra Stretchmo games. I want more Pushmo. I want more of all of it, basically. But I did appreciate them trying new things. You have to when it comes to franchises. You have to find a way to evolve the gameplay. You have to find a way to keep things interesting. Although it would have absolutely sold, I can understand why they didn't want to just create a couple hundred new basic Pushmo puzzles and release that as a new game. Because, you could make the argument that could have just been DLC, or that, or it's just a lazy sequel, or what have you. So I understand why they changed up the gameplay so much. But like Tetris, and in my opinion, like another one of my favorite franchises, Soul Calibur. Like Tetris, Soul Calibur, Pushmo are so perfect that going anywhere from there once you find that perfect, once you find that perfect, uh, that perfect groove,
Yeah.
trying to veer from that in any way is ultimately going to feel disappointing.
Yeah.
Like when you hit a bullseye, what are you going to do with your second
Where
shot?
do you go from there? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, to your point, like I enjoyed Crash Mode. To me, Crash
Yeah.
Mode feels a little, they went a little too far. I actually find Crash Mode like really difficult.
It
Like
is. Yeah.
like just the whole concept of it being like, cuz with Crash Mode, yeah, you're having to think about not just pulling the blocks out and creating a pathway for Malo to get to the top. The goal is still the same, but now you have to worry about how these platforms interact with each other and how spatially things are going to work when they begin to fall and crash. And, to me, it was like too much, man. Like I would get to the point where I'm genuinely spending like an hour on a puzzle. I'm
Yeah,
like,
with Crash
good
Mode
grief.
specifically, it was really easy to drop the blocks in a way that completely prevented you from
Right.
even solving the puzzle. Now, thankfully, all three games in the series had a little button at the front of the screen that you could hit, and it
That
would
is nice.
reset the puzzle. But especially with Crash Mode, it was incredibly easy to do something that would actually just prevent you completely from. It would basically force you to restart.
Yeah.
So, but that is admittedly another thing is once they started to expand a little bit, there was something nice and pure about Pushmo. You have this one thing from this one perspective. I'm an idiot, so I can deal with that.
Me
But then
too.
you start,
Yeah.
but then you start to add the 360 degrees to it, and you're like, oh, I got to think about it from three other angles now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that smart. I can't brain that much. So there was quite a bit of that going on, but and admittedly, I can't brain that much, but still, ultimately, the simplicity did win me out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, there's still great games, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm in
absolutely,
agreement
definitely
with
check
you.
them out.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Like the first game is still my favorite. I do prefer the simplicity of it. When we went to Pushmo World, well, actually, let me back up because there is something interesting about Stretchmo that I think we should say because Stretchmo kind of came out in this interesting period for Nintendo as well because Stretchmo came out at a period where Nintendo was experimenting with microtransactions, which was a little bit weird. Stretchmo, if I remember correctly, was actually released for free, but you would then have to buy the packs. It was like set up in like different plazas, parks, or whatever. There was like an NES theme park. There was like a standard puzzle theme park, and you would have to buy them in packs rather than just the whole game piecemeal, or wholesale rather. And that to me was also a little bit strange. They were famously Rusty's Real Deal Baseball was another example, or
Yep.
Nintendo Badge Arcade was another
Oh yeah.
example of
Yeah,
them
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of fooling with microtransactions. But Stretchmo, I think might have been a little bit of a death knell for that series because of the microtransactions. I think that might have turned people off from the series.
Well, you could get the entire game. I can't remember how much it cost, but yeah, there were four separate plazas, each with their own unique playable character this time.
That's true too.
Malo had the kind of normal, I guess, stretch mode puzzles, and then you had Poffin
Yeah,
or
the like ninja
s-
looking one or
the little
whatever.
sister essentially of
Oh,
Malo,
right,
who
right.
had her own, and then basically like the little boy character, and then you had Papa Blocks, who had the NES murals. Each of them,
Mm,
I believe, each of those packs was sold separately,
mm-hmm.
but you could very easily just get all four of them and just get the whole game
Yeah.
effectively, and which is exactly what I did. I don't remember how much more it was than the other two games. I know that there were a lot of Stretchmo puzzles in Stretchmo,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of weird because it wasn't like microtransactions in the normal sense where a lot of microtransactions that we're familiar with are like 99-cent cosmetic options
Right.
or in-game currency that the game is going to try to force you to continue to spend. It was essentially just one game broken up into 4 pieces that you could buy individually if you wanted to. It was very much Nintendo dipping their toe in the idea of microtransactions, which was kind of weird. I don't know if that specifically was the death knell in the franchise, because Stretch Mode was actually the last game released in the franchise. It actually came after Pushmo World had already released on Wii U.
Mm-hmm.
Pushmo World was released in 2014. Stretch Mode came out in 2015.
Got it.
I don't know. I can't really say, but I don't know what's going on in Intelligent Systems. I don't know what's going on at Nintendo. I don't know what the sales figures were like for Pushmo, because the game's reviewed really well. Especially the first one. As they continued to veer away from the first one, the review scores did kind of drop off a little bit. But, I mean, yeah, there's still no reason that Pushmo World Switch Edition shouldn't be a thing. I just don't understand what the motivation is at Nintendo for allowing an entire franchise to die once these eShops close. Because the entirety of the Pushmo, or if you live elsewhere in the world, the Pull Blocks franchise, that the entirety of the franchise is on the 3DS and Wii U, the 2 eShops that are closing at the beginning of next year. Which breaks my heart, because, again, as you said at the beginning of the episode, yes, this is my favorite puzzle series of all time. It's so cool, so well implemented, so interesting, and just the creation, the amount of people who are part of the Mario Maker community still to this day that still create content all the time. Not saying that a Pushmo community would have the strength or numbers of a Mario Maker community, but a community it would still have.
It would. Yeah. It'd be great even if they just... I'm not even saying necessarily, like, you don't even really have to do the legwork of, like, packaging them as like a trilogy or anything like. You could literally just put a hub, Pushmo World, Switch, Pushmo Universe, whatever you want to call it, and just like put it on Switch and just let the people make it. And like, I think that would be enough. It'd be a bonus. It'd be kind of nice if they had like the levels from Crash Mode, Stretch Mode, and the original like baked into it. That'd be super cool. But I mean, I don't even think you need to go that far. I think you could literally just have it. You could even make it like a Nintendo Switch Online thing, you know, just as like a bake-in Nintendo Switch Online thing, like, and just make it a hub.
However you want to do it, Nintendo, just give it to me. I promise you, I will play all of it.
Yeah. And to that end, I hadn't, until you said those words, I hadn't really considered the fact that, like, yeah, this entire franchise in March is just gonna die. Yeah. Like, that's crazy, actually.
Not just some random indie games that, you know, a couple guys as part of their college project put together and were able to get a Nintendo license. Not just a couple random games. We're talking about an entire franchise of Nintendo produced titles that are going to become completely unavailable when the company who makes the hardware and has the licenses for these are just perfectly okay to do that. It's in my mind, I mean, this may seem like a morbid comparison, but in my mind, it's the digital equivalent of just letting your dog out the back door in the winter and just leaving him out there.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, aren't you going to do anything? Are we going to? It's like, no, we're just gonna forget that out there. If the dog's going to die, yeah, we're just gonna forget him.
Yeah, man, it's really crazy because, like, there's all these games that are sort of like, we're losing a lot when those eShops go down. And that's been a big focus for me in this show. We've talked about it on All In.
We have a little bit of Box Boy just a little bit of
Just a little. We get a little taste as a treat. We get a little bit of Box Boy. There's these rumors of Pocket Card Jockey coming back in some form. Yep. And there are great games. I've covered Attack of the Friday Monsters on this show. Games like Harmonite come to mind.
Oh, Harmonite's so good.
Some really amazing like 3DS and Wii U games that we're losing, and some of them would make sense to port to Switch and others wouldn't make sense to port to Switch, but Pushmo would. And this isn't just a one-off really cool weird little game like Attack of the Friday Monsters or whatever. This is a whole like 4-game franchise that we're losing.
The entirety of the series, yes, that we're losing, which I don't even really think I need to reiterate at this point how much it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Especially considering the quality of the titles. It's not like an experiment that Nintendo decided to go with was critically panned and hated by everybody. And like the original Super Mario Brothers movie, they just want to move on and pretend it never happened. These are beloved titles critically acclaimed. Everybody who's ever played them. I have never heard anybody who's ever actually played Pushmo. I've never heard a single person say a single negative thing about the games. They are immaculately considered and built, and it just blows my mind. I'm out of words.
Yeah, Nintendo. And just smack them around, and it is funny, when the last episode of this show, we had our friend Barry Carenza on the show.
Hi, Barry.
And hi, Barry. And Barry put a lot of this stuff into perspective for me because it's easy for us to just call for this stuff to happen. And to your point earlier, I don't know how well the series sold. It was, of course, critically acclaimed. We don't really have an indication of sales. Nintendo doesn't reveal digital sales, and they never have. Frustratingly. So we don't know what the sales were of Pushmo. It could be that it was just this like niche little thing that not a whole lot of people bought, but the people that did really loved. So maybe it's just a matter of that doesn't make business sense. Maybe it's because Intelligent Systems is one of the busiest studios in Nintendo's wheelhouse between Fire Emblem and WarioWare and Paper Mario. And I mean, they've got so many irons in the fire. Maybe it has something to do with that. Maybe they are just holding out until the eShops close, and who knows? Maybe we do get some sort of Pushmo something after the eShops are already closed. But it is a lot to think about. So, like, guys, listening to this, hopefully you're listening to this before the closures, run out and get these games while you still have the chance, because we don't know if we're going to get another chance. So, yeah, that's right. He's holding it up to the camera right now. If you're watching the video version, got his Pushmo going.
You're darn right I do.
Oh, man.
Got a little duck, got a strawberry.
It's a great series, man.
You got Mario's big head.
There's Mario, yeah. Oh, it's so good. Well, we hope to see it return, obviously. It's very special. Do it for Eric, guys. Do it for Eric. You're taking away his favorite puzzle franchise. Do it for him. We're begging you. Come on, Doug Bowser.
There are some amazing games. There are some amazing puzzle games on the Nintendo Switch. Seth and I have covered some really, really special puzzle titles in the Indie Showcase on the main show. Releasing Pushmo on the Nintendo Switch, it would immediately become one of the best puzzle, if not the best puzzle series on the platform.
Yep, that's for sure. That's for sure. Well, again, guys, if we haven't said it enough already, go out, buy yourself some Pushmo. You got Pushmo, Crashmo, Stretchmo, Pushmo World on Wii U. All of them worth grabbing before the closures. And again, don't just download Stretchmo. Go in there, get all of everything that's in there. You want to make sure you have it all. You want to make sure you have this on your 3DS, because we don't know. We don't know. This might be the last chance. So head out and do that. Eric, before we say goodnight and close the book, at least for now, on the Pushmo series, if you would just tell people one more time where to find you online, and what, if any, what could you possibly be involved with on the internet?
I don't know. Just ask Seth. I'm sure he'll point you in the right direction most of the time. But no, if you want to follow me personally on Twitter, you can find me at allin_Eric over on Twitter. That's at ALLN_ERIC over on Twitter. And of course, if you want to follow All In, a Nintendo podcast, it's at All In Podcast on Hive, on Facebook, on Twitter. Send us a message. I might be the first one to see it.
Probably.
But yeah, make sure to check out All In a Nintendo podcast. Become a patron and check out our side quest series of podcasts that Seth and I do. Seth and I spend a lot of time in the recording room together, ladies and gentlemen. We make a lot of stuff each and every week for all of you amazing people. But make sure to give some love to my boy over here, very own $2 Hero. Thanks for having me on. Very happy to be part of my own finally Keep Nintendo Weird episode.
Yeah, man, you finally got your own episode. Yeah, it was high time, for sure, and it was nice to just give you the floor, give you the chance to just gush about this series that I know is very near and dear to your heart. You can find me on Twitter. Yeah, it's all right. At $2 Hero, of course. Links to everything All In and Keep Nintendo Weird are in the episode description. Hey, if you're not already a patron, now would be a great time to do it, because after this episode goes live, not only do patrons get early access to this episode, but you're going to be able to vote at the Golden Banana and Triforce tier. You're going to be able to vote for the next episode of Keep Nintendo Weird. I'm going to try to get one more done before the end of the year, and patrons will be able to vote on that. So if you're a fan of this show, patreon.com/allinpodcast is where you need to be. Follow Eric, show Eric some love, show us some love at All In. Nepotism, and
branding.
But again, thank you so much again, Eric, for hanging out, and everybody else out there. Buy Pushmo, Crashmo, Stretchmo, Pushmo World. Create what you want to create, and thank you all for helping me keep Nintendo weird. Bye-bye.